Greetings and welcome to the United States Transhumanist Party Virtual Enlightenment Salon. My name is Gennady Stolyarov II, and I am the chairman of the U.S. Transhumanist Party. Here we hold conversations with some of the world's leading thinkers in longevity, science, technology, philosophy, and politics. Like the philosophers of the Age of Enlightenment, we aim to connect every field of human endeavor and arrive at new insights to achieve longer lives, greater rationality, and the progress of our civilization. Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to our U.S. Transhumanist Party Virtual Enlightenment Salon of Sunday, March 9th, 2025. Today, we have a fascinating conversation in store for you about overcoming death through cybernetic replacements. This is, I think, really going to interest a lot of our viewers. We have our distinguished panel of U.S. Transhumanist Party officers and members, including our Director of Visual Art, Art Ramon Garcia, our member from Texas who leads the Texas Transhumanist Party, Alan Crowley, our Director of Marketing and 2020 U.S. presidential candidate, Charlie Kam, our Director of Publications, Zach Richardson, our Director of Community and Citizen Science, 2024 U.S. Vice Presidential candidate, and now member of the Council on Aging in Thousand Oaks, California, Daniel Tweeds. So Daniel just received an official post in Thousand Oaks. Congratulations to him. And we have also our Legislative Director, Jason Geringer. Our special guests today are co-founders of Sciborg DAO, Andrei Panferov and Tomer Landsberger. And Sciborg DAO is a new decentralized autonomous organization which seeks to solve death with synthetic replacements. It brings together scientists, engineers, entrepreneurs, and investors who seek to prolong and enhance human existence. Through the Decentralized Autonomous Organization, Sciborg DAO plans to fund IP or intellectual property tokens focused on survival-critical technologies that other investors typically overlook or underfund. So we are quite curious to hear more. Andrei, Tomer, welcome, and please feel free to begin.
Thank you, Gennady. It was really great introduction from your side. And I also want to congratulate. It's really great that Transhumanist Party is now taking part in actually defining the longevity politics. It's a great achievement. And I hope that more will come. Let me start then from first. I think it will be good if we will introduce ourselves. So from my side, I'm technical entrepreneur I'm entrepreneur for 17 years, and for 7 of them, I'm technical entrepreneur. So I started with making quite big conferences in Moscow. I think maybe 12 years ago, they were the biggest ones, and we had thousands of people visiting. And then I understood that want to switch to do actual tech. Learned a lot out of it, and made a series of 3 startups. Most of them failed, and now actually I'm having a couple AI startup in Stockholm in HR tech that's going quite well. And so the problem is that it's not that satisfying to do just tech without understanding that you will actually be able to live forever and to play with the tech that you are doing forever. And I have a lot of my friends, entrepreneurs, who were able to do something meaningful, but dead young and rich. And in the year of COVID, and they changed a lot, my understanding of how do I want to spend my lifetime. So I had to switch to actually doing longevity science. And one of the things that I did, I researched the high net worth individuals' opinion on how do they think, what is the most interesting strategy for them to extend their lifespan. And so the most accessible high net worth individuals for me were the people who are actually earn their money with either AI or game development or some other IT connected things. And quite interesting that they are answers about how do they see the project that can actually save their life, and that they are willing to fund, and that they are willing to work with, was that something that works on the merge of the human and the AI, and some way for there are all the talks about biological replacement and ideally full body replacement, when you can just transplant a new body if your body is dying. And quite interesting thing that those entrepreneurs were saying, they want a cyber body. And it was quite interesting that everybody who took part in the survey were selecting this particular strategy. So it made me think on how I actually can do this. And I discussed it with Adam Grease, and from Vitalism. You are probably, you know each other. I think he was in this transhumanist salon, and he got me acquainted with Tomer at the same time. He said, well, I know one scientist who is actually right now trying to define a minimal artificial body. And so here is Tomer. I think, Tomer, it's a great moment if you can introduce yourself now.
Thanks for the segue, Andrei. So I'm a scientist by training. I have a pretty broad scope. I started in physics and I transitioned to biology, specifically to tackle aging. And more recently, I think in the past 2 years, I've been in DeSci. So I've reached this startup, I guess, from a point of dissatisfaction, actually, with how biology is trying to extend lifespan, which is mainly through interventions that are meant to delay or reverse aging based on research in biogerontology, which is very slow for good reasons and for bad reasons. Good reasons being that biology is very complex, so it's unavoidable. And maybe the bad reasons is that you have some maybe regulatory overhead that's kind of stalling the process. But from a scientific perspective, I was trying to come up with an alternative path to reversing aging because of these two factors. And what I came up with, well, it's not very original. I think people have been talking about, becoming cyborgs for many decades, but usually not in the context of life extension. So what I realized that it might actually be used for that purpose if we do it right. And my premise is that our identities are tied to our brains. So in essence, all we have to do is keep our brains alive and not the entire body, which simplifies the problem. And we can replace everything else. And we can replace it either with, biological parts. So as Andrei mentioned, some people are working on fabricating organs or cloning, which will allow us to just move, transplant our heads onto another body or just replace parts one by one. But I was looking for something different and more scalable, and that's when I came up with this cybernetics idea, where you just make a machine to support the head separately from the body. And all you need to do for that to be viable is to replace essentially the blood with some substitute that you can produce at scale, which is not an easy task by any means, but might be potentially easier than trying to fix everything. And apart from that, it's about the machines that are regulating this circuit that has the head in it. And so we've been trying to identify all the essential technologies, and we found that most of them are already being developed by either commercial companies or early stage research in universities. And there are still some gaps, some essential technologies that are either underfunded or not funded at all. So we've come up with what we call a critical path to cyborgization. And that's why we started Sciborg DAO, which is aimed at funding technologies on this path.
Yeah, I think now it's good time to show parts of the presentation or the presentation as is. So present full screen. I think it will be perfect. Yeah, Gennady, may I ask you to switch on the presentation on the whole screen?
It is on right now.
Oh, perfect. Thanks. So, we think that the transition from humans to cyborgs that will actually extend our life to infinity and that will reduce mortality is kind of already going. So we already have artificial hearts that can actually last for years, and there are other organs upcoming. For example, we already have brain-computer interfaces, and this particular picture is from a startup which is called NeuroRestore. They are focused on helping people to walk in case of spinal cord injury, and they are restoring their walking functions. So the paralyzed man already walks. There are even more brain-computer interface. For example, you already can speak with your own voice with 72 words per minute. And of course, like there are visual interfaces upcoming, but they are harder and we will talk about it later. And there are like other neural interfaces coming in. And we have the next brick is actually ex vivo organ perfusion. So if we cannot reproduce some organ, then we can keep this organ alive. And this particular is about human lung, which was kept ex vivo for hours. But already now we are having the cases where artificial liver was kept alive for 17 days. And this is just a publication. So in reality, it was kept alive a bit more. It was not viable since the day number 5 because it was not able to, like, they wouldn't be able to transplant it. And as those scientists told us, probably from the day 10 to day 17, the liver would cry of pain if it was alive and had mouth. But still, it's a great progress. And the progress in perfusing organs ex vivo is coming like every day. So we think that cybernetics is inevitable. And the future of cybernetics is even more bold. So what people want to achieve and what everyone is speaking about is like, how can we actually merge with AI? And right now, this is a fantasy. It's not even a science fiction. It's like a Harry Potter movie or Star Wars, being honest, because the problem is that we do not even know yet what exactly consciousness is. And we don't understand completely how it functions, and we have the parts of the future theory of consciousness, but we don't know how it will actually work out. Will it be quantum? Will it be functional just from the functions of the brain? Or will it be are neurons enough to do consciousness? Can artificial machine be conscious? Or do we need to go deeper inside neurons to be conscious? So we don't know yet how to do that. We don't know how to progressively replace brain tissue to facilitate merger with AI. We just have theories. But problem is that we cannot wait. So if we step back, then the previous step would be actually a brain in a vat. So brain in a vat is also quite used concept in science fiction. So we can imagine isolated brain in homeostasis with connected full sense brain-computer interfaces that help you to control a VR or real-world avatar. And this is quite challenging. So this already looks like a science fiction, but already not a fantasy, because we do not need to crack any we don't need to invent new theories for this. We need to just dig a bit deeper in the science that we are having now, and this is quite plausible. And if we step back from this to actually what we can do now, and this will be head in homeostasis. So it will take probably 15 to 20 years to invent one, And this is quite a complex problem. But we can imagine ahead. We can understand all the technologies that are required to keep it alive. We know where are the gaps. We know where are scientific gaps, and this can prevent mortality in a lot of cases and even extend average lifespan. We of course cannot expect from the first time that head in homeostasis would be a therapy that you apply proactively to your existing head because you don't like your existing body, but we can expect that it will happen post-mortem, or like if you are in really critical situation and sent in hospice and your head and brain tissue are still viable. So how can we actually do it? We can, first of all, this is already being in progress. All of those technologies that we are speaking about, like mainly all of them, are in progress. So first of all, we need artificial plasma, and to do this, we need actually nutrients that, like for example, if you don't have a gastrin for some reason, you can live without it just on nutrients put into your blood, and you can live for decades with it. So if you don't want to eat, you cannot eat. It won't be healthy for you because you still have a stomach, but you can do this. So these cases exist. Then we need oxygen transport and buffering. And here for oxygen transport, there are 3 companies that are doing clinical trials and are trying to do oxygen carriers to replace your red blood cells. And they're trying to do it in quite different ways. So one way is to actually grow your own red blood cells. It's not that easy because they are produced in a bit more complex way than other cells. But still, the company in UK is actually in clinical trials switching from stage 1 to stage 2. And the second alternative here is to actually grow hemoglobin, produce it with some recombinant technology, make some bacteria produce the hemoglobin at scale. And this is way completely independent of human hemoglobin. And in this case, we don't need to take anything from other humans. We don't need a donor blood. It's absolutely scalable way. And then we can put this hemoglobin into liposomes and have kind of it's called LEH, when you have the absolutely synthetic transport. So worst case thing that we need actually immunity. So we need the bone marrow that produces all types of cells, and we don't need only immunity, we need actually to modulate the immunity in the way that to profile the immune cells. And of course, we need the coagulation. So if something hurts your head, if for some reason you are getting hurt and you are getting a scar, you will simply die if there is no way how we can prevent your the blood from coagulate. So all of those things we need to have ready. And there is also actually a company working on coagulation. I don't remember the clinical phase, but it's already in human. And in terms of immunity, there are people right now that are trying to build the whole immune system bottom up, using nanoparticles and trying to profile everything with it. So it's not perfect, but it looks viable. Then probably one of the hard, complicated thing is a head homeostasis device. So we can easily reproduce heart-lung function, also kidney function. You can stay on the dialysis for decades. It's expensive. It costs around it can cost $60,000 per year, for example, and the price may vary depending on the country, but you can live without kidneys. Not perfect life, but still. And heart-lung function, there are people that, as we said, there are people who lived on artificial hearts for 6 years and even more, and there are people who stayed on ECMO for 150 days. ECMO is not a perfect technology. It's quite traumatic for the blood, but it's a prototype, so better than nothing. Liver, probably the hardest organ that we can even imagine. We cannot yet reproduce one. We can reproduce partially the detox function of the liver with devices called MARS, like on Mars. But liver is not only the organ that cleans the blood, it's also the organ that drops in some proteins. And so we need a full liver function, which is hard. So also Cyborg will require a real-time blood monitoring, which we are not that good at. So everything in our organism is having the feedback loops, and there are a lot of feedback loops between the head and the blood. So we need the sensor-guided feedback control built in device, and based on some like chemical sensors, because mass spectrometry will probably be too hard to build in the cycle for real-time blood monitor, but still, like, we have something here. The problem that we actually we cannot transect the spinal cord right now. Like, if we fully transect the spinal cord in somewhere near your neck, then you will probably die from Wallerian degeneration. So, and from the upcoming edema. So the neurons in your spinal cord will degenerate. And when they reach your brain stem with edema, you will die. And one of the biggest problems here is that there were head transplant operations done by different surgeons in US, like Robert White, and in Russia, but all of them failed because of edema. Like, the mouth was so big that like the dog couldn't breathe. So, as we said, it can de-risk a lot of mortality causes. Not those that are connected with the head, but everything below it, which is quite a good win. And who knows, maybe if you had, like, let's imagine an old man or an old woman whose head was transplanted to a cyborg body, and they are dying for some reason now, like they were dying for some reason, so they were transplanted to a cyborg body, and we can perfuse them with actually quite young blood. We can, like, use the young blood components, and there is a small chance that it will reduce the speed how the brains are degenerated. We don't know that for sure, but there were several experiments with perfusing the brain with young blood, so there is a chance that it will work. The embodiment suit, quite interesting thing. So first, sensory motor neural interface. The problem is that one we need will probably require a transected spinal cord, which is hard, which we do not yet know how to prevent in the whole humanity. And no one is actually studying how to make a neural interface for transected spinal cord. It's quite a difficult field. There are maybe only 3 surgeons in the world who are working on it. But robotic bodies and robotic skin, it's not a problem. A lot of companies produce it at scale, so we don't have to worry about anything here. Hopefully you will have something to work with when you are a cyborg. Head perfusion is not an old idea, like it's not a new idea. So the first person who did it was Sergei Brukhonenko, who did it in USSR in 1928. And there is actually video on YouTube, you can find one. He was perfusing head of the dog because, like, dogs were ethical those times. Now it's not, but he kept it alive for 3.5 hours. And you can see it's pretty strange. It can even lick its nose, it's open its eyes, it reacts. So it's definitely conscious and alive. It's not feeling good, but no one will if you are a cyborg at first. And we even have scientists who are rebooting this experiment. A very skilled neurosurgeon who actually had experience in detaching and attaching back the swine head. And the perfusion guys and, like, some engineers who are working on this. So we can expect it to work. And Tomer's grandmother will actually take part in the experiment. So she agreed to cut her head and sorry, I'm kidding. We're of course not going to perfuse Tomer's grandmother's head at the first time. It will be just a
You got me, man.
Probably not in the first decade, guys. First cyborg will be a pig.
I've told these jokes like 10 times now, so
yeah. So we made it like this device that we are developing. We are trying to develop it to be upgradable as fast as possible. So the idea is here to use lean principles wherever possible. So what we want to do, we want to have a perfusion platform with multiple devices that can work at scale. And we want to place it in a very special way. We want to place it right near the surgery facility where we can work with person heads, person organs, and person donor blood. And near the transplant hospital where we can have access with discarded human organs and with ethically donated organs. And access to those organs can actually be given for free, so we can work with discarded livers, with bone marrows and everything, right, in humans, and take all the data that we are having. So this is a facility to actually convert everything wet into the data and drive it as fast as possible to the analytic lab, where and have a bioengineering facility in the same place so we can iterate on multiple experiments at a time, because the speed of the experiments in science is now not that fast as it could be. So we could potentially iterate and check hypotheses like multiple in a week, especially with AI. If we plant AI here, and we definitely want to plant AI here to generate more hypotheses and to plant to bring new. So if we can do it very, 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 very fast, we hope that we will be able to save the parents that we are having now. Product strategy. I think I had a better slide. Okay, anyway, I will have to explain it with this. So now we are starting with, we want to have actually an ecosystem. Yeah, let's start with this. We want to have an ecosystem. There was a quite inspiring quantum biology DAO who made a combination of DAO, Institute, and Inc. to work at the same time with non-profit money from the DAO, from the people who are enthusiasts and who actually want to fund it actively and who don't expect any commercial output of this, from the scientific part from the institutes, like from the government, so the institute can be funded by the government, and also we want to have Inc. So here we have just two entities, but this is the basic idea. So Sciborg DAO is a Varine, which can actually invest in IP tokens and coordinate the people from different parts of the world to produce the required IP that is needed to boost this as fast as possible. And at the same time, Sciborg Inc., as an incorporation, will be able to take angels and VCs money, because it's usually quite good to talk about the non-profit science and how it shapes the world and how important it is, and it's absolutely correct. But you cannot become a cyborg in the lab. You can only become a cyborg if there is a commercially ready product and a stable company with a lot of applications that can actually support you and your cyborgization. And probably one person cannot be cyborg, there can be only 1,000. So, and the company that we want to make in parallel with the DAO is it has to produce everything that we need. So we need a longer term ECMO machine, because right now the ECMO machines, for example, they use balloons.
Can you say again what ECMO was? ECMO?
ECMO is extracorporeal membrane oxygenation, which is used if your lungs are dying. So, for example, during the COVID times, a lot of people were saved by ECMO machines that were helping to ventilate your blood when it's dying, but they are damaging for the blood. And even though it's extremely interesting market, they're not themselves right now, they're not viable for cyborgization, because supporting you even for a year is not the same with supporting you for decades. So we need a breakthrough here. And we have an idea of how to, we know a couple of scientists who are working on a breakthrough here, and this is called cyclone oxygenation. when the idea is actually to not traumatize the blood at all. Like, ideally, of course, it's not possible, but at least they're trying to make a breakthrough here. So the next thing here that also is needed is a liver perfusion, because like the scientists that are working on biohybrid livers right now, or at livers, they're not expecting the breakthrough in making actually fully artificial liver. So probably the lifespan of the head will be still limited by the lifespan of the liver. Like, of course, livers can be transplanted, and like you can even donate a liver to a person, not the whole liver, but part of it, and your one will actually regrow. But we will have to learn how to keep liver in homeostasis in the same way as we can keep brain. And at the same time, we want to work in a bone marrow perfusion, which will probably be the first application, because there are around 50,000 operations over bone marrow right now, bone marrow transplants, and there is no specialized device in it. So the bone marrow perfusion looks like the first application. And if we start with bone marrow perfusions, it's actually a way to produce the immune organoid, so for the immune system. And because like everybody has seen cyborgs in Futurama, probably, where the head was detached and it wasn't some specific liquid. But if you actually want to kiss your kids or your beloved ones, you need some better protection than like your head needs to have ability to survive on the air. So real-time blood monitoring, detox functions of the liver, wearable kidneys, synthetic blood, neuroprotective screenings. So things are balanced in stack. So we're starting with bone marrow and oxygenation, and then we will go further. But
what is CAGR?
What? CAGR is a growth of the market, the speed with which the market is growing per year. So for example, 13.9 for wearable kidneys, expected growing market, like it's quite fast. And for example, for ECMO, the market is growing slower right now because they need a breakthrough. So, and the head perfusion is probably like can take a lot of deaths. And so the idea is to be hybrid. Like all the parts of your future body probably would be assembled in different parts of the world, and we understand that we cannot create everything by ourselves. So we have to integrate scientists, and we have to create the whole industry around it, and that's why DAO is highly needed. And one problem is that people don't even look right now at cybernetics as a plausible strategy to survive. So if we will not like find a way actually how it can become one, it will be like we need to teach people to make them look at the cybernetics not as a science fiction movie, and not as something that can help disabled people to regain a function, and not even as an enhancement. But we want the people to look at the cybernetics as the way to fight with death, as a way to go beyond, to postpone the mortality. We have right now a team which is quite like a core team is quite broad with broad skills. So me and Tomer are entrepreneurs. I'm from tech, and Tomer is mostly from biology and scientific background. Adam Grease from Vitalism is one of our advisors. Kaimi Camils from Hydra and Eli Mohammed from Hydra are the people who actually inspired us to, like, together with them to do a DAO, and highly supporting us with all their advisory, and we hope that they will take part in launching our DAO soon, and we have the agreements on this. So because Cryo DAO and Hydra DAO are right now looking like really mortality tech DAOs, and so we highly rely on their help in future. And even now, their advice are priceless. Sergio Canavera, actually, you see him here. He's the father of the head transplant surgeries. Probably you have heard about him, and he's in contact with our team and with our surgeon also. And Misha Lebedev was the person who trained parts of Neuralink team in Duke College. So that's the starting point that we're having now. We are fundraising, but it's not the topic of this current, I think, conversation. So yeah, I think I think that we should talk a bit more. We are open for your questions, and I think it looks like we are in time with the finishing the presentation. We have more things to say, but if you want, yeah.
And we do have a lot of questions coming in already. So the first question that I want to address comes from Alan Crowley, and there was a bit of discussion on this in our internal chat, but Alan wonders, with regard to having a cyborg body, how about the biotic flora and fauna that exists within us? How do we mimic those sensors? And Tomer noted in our internal chat that this is not critical for survival. It reduces to molecular blood components that we need to decode. And Alan responded, survival, yes, but for enjoying a life worth living, is it important to replicate those components in some way? So Tomer, perhaps you want to respond further to this.
Yeah, I can address this. So yeah, I mean, I guess that's a smaller problem than, reproducing the action of the major organs like liver, kidney, and all the glands we have that are signaling glands that are also, as you said, responsible for our well-being. So we need to figure out what components in the blood are necessary and what components of the blood we need to regulate in order for us to be, not just alive, but also well. But we don't intend on reproducing like these organs individually. We're not going to make a synthetic stomach and a synthetic liver and a synthetic kidney and synthetic glands. We're just going to look at the entire composition of the blood. And because all these organs, they communicate with the brain either through the blood or the nervous system. And it's mainly the blood that we need to decode. So we're going to look into that. We're going to figure out what all these different components are. Most of them are molecules, proteins, metabolites, a lot of signaling molecules. Some may be more complex, like vesicles. But so we're just going to look at this as a main project. And we need to figure out a way to synthesize all these molecules, probably with recombinant technology. We'll have some kind of bioreactor with microorganisms or maybe even human cells that are engineered to produce specifically these essential components. But so I don't see the microbiome as a separate problem. It's just a part of what goes into the blood.
Can we elaborate on that? You were saying you're looking for like a minimum viable body, right? So my question would sort of be then, why did you decide just the brain? I mean, I guess the brain minimum viable, thinking and your consciousness is contained there. But is the reason for not building more of like a full stack because you're hoping to maybe save more people? Is it sort of a philanthropic thing? You'll be able to save more people from dying? Or is there perhaps a separate reason that you're going for the minimum package, like a proof of concept?
Okay, I'll break it down. The minimal part that was the question I was trying to answer. What is the minimal necessary suite of technologies just to survive? Not necessarily for moving around or interacting with your environment, but just to keep the head alive separately from the body. And you're right.
Probably working as a security camera somewhere.
Sorry?
And probably working as a security camera somewhere.
Okay.
I can understand sort of video feeds and audio feeds and things like that. That seems pretty natural, like you say. Just plug into the Ring network in your whole neighborhood. That's great.
But you get away from there. I can see you.
Right? Like, get off my porch. Anyway, but the other piece of that is those, like you say, there's a lot of those signaling things that tell us whether a glass of wine is good or bad, that are more than that are their gut response and the vagus nerve and those kind of things are providing us feedback on the world around us. So not necessary for survival, but I'm thinking great aspects of humanity that I wouldn't want to lose.
Yeah, I mean, you have to start somewhere. Like it's a stepwise program. So yeah, we start with just the survival kit, which is going to just include some kind of machine that perfuses blood or blood substitutes into the head or even just the brain. And from there, we'll move on to brain-machine interfaces that will restore your sensation. Actually, we can, by perfusing the head and not just the brain, we keep some of our sensory organs, right? So we can still experience some of the environment. But of course, we're losing a lot of, things that are critical for just, being able to enjoy life. And our logic has been that a lot of companies are already working on the brain-computer interfaces and on robotics. And there's a lot of money going into this industry. And actually, we probably should not be focused on that. Because by the time we are done with head perfusion and just keeping the head alive, these technologies have already matured to some extent. And we could be just integrate them into our system. So that's been like the way we've approached it strategically. We may be wrong, it might be like, it might take another decade. And you have
I concur with your entrepreneurial decision. Yeah, I think that's great. Yeah.
There's going to be competition in the space of immortality, not just longevity vitamins now. It's going to be, all right, do you want a robot body or do you want one of those clones that you got your head transplant onto? What's the cost? What's the quality of living?
Yeah, definitely. There's also competing strategies to life extension. So you have, the more traditional, now traditional, it's funny to say that, but, drugs and, some all sorts of maybe gene therapies that can potentially extend your lifespan. This becomes a kind of mainstream by now. And maybe they beat us to the punch. Maybe they get there faster and we won't need all this. Or maybe someone will be able to just grow a new biological body and, work out how to transplant the head onto this body. And that will also kind of make our program obsolete. But there's so many open questions and unknowns that I think we should just work on different directions and hope for the best outcome.
I say not obsolete at all. I can imagine a lot of people would prefer having some giant mechanical walker that's going to come when these, the brain-computer interfaces you're talking about are realistic.
Yeah, I have to say, I think it's inevitable that this is like the eventuality, right? That you're going to be cyborgs. I can't imagine humans in 1,000 years being like walking around in these flesh suits. We're going to be cyborgs eventually, but yeah, maybe it's premature. Who knows? I definitely would like to have a stronger body, a faster body, maybe have being able to fly around. That would be nice, but yeah, still a bit sci-fi at this point.
So I have a few questions about the nature of this body. So suppose there is a 90-year-old person who might be dying of heart failure or lung failure or one of the many other maladies that afflict people of that age, and he is given the cyborg body. Tell us more about how you envision it. Presumably it would be a fairly capable body. He would be able to walk, run, move his limbs, read, write, do backflips, etc. But perhaps the internal structure of that body would not necessarily be analogous to a human body. And you mentioned that in your previous remarks. Maybe it wouldn't have a stomach as we think of it. Maybe it wouldn't have a heart as we think of it. What would essentially power that body? And furthermore, how would the organic brain that would be connected to that body send it the appropriate signals, given that there aren't the analogous structures? So the brain, through the autonomic nervous system right now, knows how to regulate the human organic heart and the human organic lungs and the stomach, and there's this whole gut-brain axis that is very complicated and we don't understand very well yet. But with this cyborg body, it might have a very different design. So how would an organic brain interface with that?
Yeah, there are a lot of topics to cover here. First, I will answer on the fun topic when we are speaking about what kind of body can we have. Maybe someone will actually make oneself a starship. We don't know. You don't need, if you're a cyborg, you don't need a bike anymore. You can be the bike if you want it, of course. But yeah, that's just a fun. I don't think that somebody will want to actually be the bike, because it's quite more fun to be separate with the bike. It's just more useful. The world is designed for the humans as they are now. So probably what we definitely can expect is that you will, if we are able to solve the problem of the head homeostasis or the brain homeostasis, and VR will be good at this time, you will probably have both. We will have a virtual avatar, and in 90% of cases that will be enough. You can have all the feel. If it's full sense, then it is full sense. The reality is what you sense. So that's point one. But of course, there are people who love the real world, and if you want to hug someone, you want to hug someone in the real world, and that's why you probably want to have a real world avatar. So something that can walk for you, and that's the future that we can expect. So probably hybrid reality. We will probably live in hybrid reality. But now how, the interface and the interface mapping problem, well, it's extremely interesting. I think I should share one slide with you. I will try to do it right now. It's one of our extras. But actually, to map this and to understand how it will work, we tried to map the state of the art and here is the state of the art in neural interfaces. Where is it? Artificial organs. Yeah, where is it? Oh, no, I don't have one. It's gone somewhere. It couldn't be. 1 second, please.
That is fine. And while you are retrieving that slide, I will note, since you mentioned Kai-Micah Mills of Hydra DAO, we had a fascinating virtual enlightenment salon with him on December 22nd, 2024, that our viewers can watch at this link. And Adam Grease joined us recently on February 2nd, 2025, to discuss the Vitalist Bay conference that is going to be occurring in Berkeley, California in April and May of this year. So a lot of fascinating developments are happening. And furthermore, CryoDAO was mentioned as another enterprise that Kai-Micah Mills is involved in, and we had a salon with him on that on September 1st, 2024. So, Andrei, is this the slide that you have here, the ex vivo organ preservation?
No, the neural interfaces. Do you see one?
Neural interfaces. It may be on a different tab that you have open.
Yeah, okay. I'm trying. I will try to reshare again. 1 second.
Yes, indeed. Yeah. And in the meantime, we'd like to welcome Dr. Jose Cordero, who is our technology advisor and foreign ambassador in Spain. We're pleased that you were able to join us, and Andrei is going to show us his special slide on neural interfaces.
Yeah, so the neural interfaces, and this is the current state of the art, at least this is the one for the past, I think, 3 months ago when I made one. Of course, we are progressing, but not that fast to change the slide daily. So the idea is easy. So we have mammals, primates, humans, clinical studies, and market. So, and the neural interfaces, we can drive them into the modalities. So there is a speech neural interfaces, sensory motor neural interface, visual, auditory, and mimics. So With speech neural interfaces, I think that in a couple of years, probably by 2032, we will be actually done. Because even right now, there is a company, BrainGate, I think it's actually in California making an experiments with 62 words per minute. And there are even experiments with 79 words per minute with own voice. So we can consider the speech neural interfaces to be done by this time. Auditory neural interfaces are already done. And I have the people who are talking about them, and they say that you can listen Pink Floyd with the auditory neural interface and even enjoy it. It's harder with mimics, so we cannot actually really easily read your face. So the progress there is not that fun. We will probably have to read it somewhere from cortical area. Visual neural interfaces will be the hardest challenge. So when we are speaking about why we are perfusing head and not brain initially, that's because of the progress in visual neural interfaces. So there was a device on the market with 60 electrodes, Argus 2, and this is $120K. And the hard problem there was that, imagine what is 60 electrodes. You literally, you can probably see the door if you are passing it near you. And that's not the experience that we are used to. And if we are talking about 378 electrodes, Pixium by science, maybe it's a bit closer to 25 on 25 avatar to actually 20 to 20 avatar, something like this, not more. It's and this is the whole information you get around the world. And now science by Max Hodak, they announced FlexLED technology, 90 to 90 pixels, and this is still so small. And to see the world how you are used to see it, you need 7K to 7K for each eye. And we are not in this point right now. And there are ideas on actually how to implement this. And these ideas are even quite smart. So what Max Hodak, who is my right now favorite person in neural interfaces, I would say, he's working on biohybrid neural interfaces, and the idea is mind-blowing. So have you heard about optogenetics? Probably I can explain. So you have a neuron cell, and you genetically modify it to react on the light. And if you put a light with a laser on this particular, or even with plain light on this particular neuron, it fires. And now imagine that you grow them on a chip, and you can have a small display, like a very, very small chip, and you can have thousands or even millions of neurons grown there. And if you implant them inside your head, that particularly can provide you quite high resolution and quite high biocompatibility. The problem is that they are still not in the eye nerves, and the brain is used to accept the information from the eye nerves. And to actually work with them, it will require probably even more miniaturization, but it looks possible with this technology. And the two hard things that we're having left are sensory motor signals. And for them, we have to work with the spinal cord. But the problem with the spinal cord is that if you transect the spinal cord, as we know, we don't yet know how to fuse it, and no one knows how to make it compatible with something like something carbon-based or like silicon-based. So, and most works in science, currently in spinal cords, they do not transect the spinal cord and do not plant something to transect the spinal cord. They just plant things in parallel with it. So you have a spinal cord, and that's how you have electrodes. And that's a problem. So because for cyborgization, we ultimately will have to transect the spinal cord, and no one is working on how to prevent that coming neurodegeneration and how to actually work with it. But except one small team in California, we will not mention their name, but they're quite fun. So they want to work on this, and they're making experiments. And at least planning the experiments. And the idea is that to do this, like you have 700 muscles inside your body, and you need to be able to control each of them separately. And also, and this is just a read signal, like when you read from the spinal cord, but we need also to write back, so it's bidirectional. And this means we also need to send signals from each potential dot of your body, like of your skin. But this is the way how you can map it. So if the basic fundamental problem of attaching something to a transected spinal cord will be solved, and even by hybrid neural interfaces not helping here physiologically, we still have like what to do after. It's quite easy. Like, we just put I don't know, like we put fingers on each parts of your body and we map them and we understand the activity. And so we just need to map what each axon of the spinal cord means, like or each part of the spinal cord means. And they're quite stable. And so that will be possible after the physiological problem is solved. And that's where we highly need a DAO, because it's definitely a non-profit activity, like to do this, because it's too scientifically risky. That's probably nearly everything. The last one would be the feedback loops with the heart, like with hormones. So you need to sleep, you need to like wish to sleep and actually sleep. You need to wish to become angry and you need to become angry. You need to wish to become calm and you need to become calm. So the wishes are probably easy to read with electrocorticography. So we can read your mind, we can read about what you think, so we can even read your mood. But producing the mood, that will be the problem. And that's where only machine learning and blood composition decoding can help us. So that's why we need the perfusion setup. So otherwise it will be very hard to actually do it. Tomer, maybe you can add some comments on the feedback loops for like mood and sensation and everything if you want.
No comments on my side.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you for these remarks. And I also wanted to give Tomer the opportunity to say more on the scientific side of replacement technologies, since he is the scientific co-founder. Are there any additional areas that you would like to elaborate on at this time?
Yeah, I would say Andrei covered most of it when he went over the slides. But yeah, maybe one option that we have been considering lately is, instead of trying to synthesize some of the more complex blood components like the immune system especially, but also red blood cells and platelets, which are specialized cells that develop in the bone marrow, we might be able to just take a bone segment from a human or even from an animal like a pig that's been genetically modified to be compatible with a human organism in terms of immunity. And this bone segment can provide much of the essential blood components, the cellular ones, but also the non-cellular ones for the brain. So imagine just like having this like piece of bone that has some bone marrow, and we're fusing it with some fluid, and essentially all the cells are being produced by this bone segment and flowing into the brain. So that might be a more elegant way to reproduce the whole blood. But yeah, we're still kind of in the like very early diligence on this idea.
Yes, thank you for these remarks. And we have many questions that have accumulated. I will pose two questions from our viewers because they are related. Mike Lazine wonders, are there any healthcare providers that cover synthetic replacements, including organs, or is it all out of pocket. And I suppose there's a two-part answer to this question. First of all, today there are artificial organs that could be covered if a doctor says, well, you need a heart transplant, and here's an artificial heart that could keep you alive. We have Zach Richardson with us, who had an artificial heart for a few years until he got a human heart, but the artificial heart kept him alive during that time, I believe between 2019 and 2022. So it did its job, and I presume insurance covered at least some significant part of that expense.
It sure did. A very significant portion.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Well, that's good to hear. That's good to hear that there are some precedents for doing that. And it would be interesting to hear Andrei's and Tomer's thoughts about how the medical system or the insurance system in countries that have an insurance system might approach paying for these kinds of treatments. But a related question is from Daniel Tweed, who wonders, will the first cyborgs be based on open source technology or proprietary technology? And since Sciborg DAO seeks to be an innovator in these technological areas, do you anticipate releasing any of the technologies that you help to fund or develop via an open source model so that they could be iterated upon, innovated on by other entities? Or do you expect there to be some sort of proprietary IP framework? And if so, how would a person receiving, say, a cybernetic body be treated in terms of whether that body is that person's own property or whether some other entity has an intellectual property interest in what would become a human body in essence? So I'm curious as to your answers to these questions, which I think are interrelated.
Yeah, the questions are actually great. Thanks for asking them. And I want to applaud actually. Zach, right? You had the artificial heart for 2 years. Like my congratulations that you're with us.
Interesting period.
Yeah, it's great that you are with us. Like the real cyborg is here. Or at least you was cyborg for a while, and now you are back to nature. So my congratulations. But
I always tell people if I could have gotten, the real heart was better with the transplant, so it was definitely an upgrade. I could not operate as well with the artificial one, but if I could upgrade to a better artificial one, I think there'd be no question that I would do so, and I could run twice as fast and have blood circulate even better. So no preference, biological or artificial, just which has the best function.
Yeah, true. It's all about performance. But coming back to the question of the finance, I think there is a lot of things to talk here. So the first thing that we should think about, that I want to bring in, that there are right now people who are supported by cardiac bypass machines. And the cardiac bypass machine is needed when you don't have a heart and you need something to support you actually right now, before you even have an artificial heart or during the surgery operations or whatever. And if people do not have enough money to pay for this, and it's quite expensive, they can be just switched off from this machine and die. So the hard problem of all the medtech and from all the biotech and from all the life extension things, that price is something that can kill you. Like if you cannot afford the price, you will die. So that's a problem. And it's a system problem that we cannot solve with just producing new technologies. And we need a new manufacturing methods, we need atomic pressure assemblage or something like this to solve the problem of actually making things affordable for the people. It's not even a problem of a financial system. It's a problem of scarcity of the production and scarcity of the resources and a lot of things. So, but some insurance cover this. not all of them, but imagine we have 68 millions of deaths in the world right now per year. And that means that 200,000 people are dying each day. What are we, and if in US or in Europe, you can potentially or in Japan, China, also Australia, UK, in the rich countries, people can afford good insurance that can cover expenses up to hundreds or sometimes millions of dollars. Beyond there, the life is not that easy. People cannot probably afford it. So definitely we need an open source strategy. In the cyber body, I would think that there will be a broad spectrum of them, from those which you can manufacture right at home because by the blueprints that are published somewhere from the papers and from everything. You can build a perfusion device in your garage if you are a skillful engineer, or print even one sometimes. But I can also imagine cyborg hearts, cyborg bodies from Boston Dynamics, that can cost you probably millions of dollars, or more than a yacht, but you can, I don't know, fly with it, or something like this. But so we will face even more inequality than we're facing now. But the only thing how we can reduce it probably is by publishing the simplest versions of this, and that's actually quite good matches with the DAO, because with the DAO grant, you cannot produce a commercially viable product. It's just let's be sober about it. And but you can produce something open and publish a paper about it. That's what you can do with a grant. But to produce a real product, you need the real investments. So can you assemble a real product in your garage that will fit you forever? No. Can you produce something that you can help it sustain? Probably yes. So, and I'm deeply sorry for everyone who will not be able to afford it. I just don't know how to solve this problem,
Yes. Well, thank you for that answer. And in some respects, it's a hopeful answer that there is a realistic possibility that insurance systems will cover at least some of these treatments, and that the approach that you're considering is an open source approach, which would tend to improve accessibility, lower barriers to entry, and hopefully with competition on the market, there will be enough innovative companies that provide the service that the cost will be driven down in that way. But there will still be some objective costs to the research, to the physical materials, the engineering, and initially these bodies will be expensive. That is a reality. Hopefully through some policy approaches like the ones that the U.S. Transhumanist Party advocates, we can accelerate that time frame to accessibility for more individuals. But this is definitely a worthwhile discussion to have. And along these lines, Mike Lazine writes, he's 50 years old right now, and it seems based on the timeline that you put forward, not dying in 50 years would be very important to get the full benefit of these technologies. Mike Lazine writes, we need to reach longevity, escape velocity as soon as possible. And I agree with him. I think we need to do everything to keep ourselves alive for as long as possible. But I think we also should consider, when do you think it would be realistic for, let's say, a person of fairly ordinary means, maybe a middle class or an upper middle class person, being able to have a cyborg body? Do you have any time frame prognostications, at least enough of a cyborg body to prolong their lives so that they can survive until the next stage of technological advancements and maybe get an upgrade from that point in time?
Well, we even have a slide for this, even a set of slides. So let's try to answer on this question in the way, like, of course, we cannot predict the future, but we can, in some methods, we can try to approximate the future. So right now, when you develop any biotech product, let's imagine breakthrough product. Yeah, not easy one, not too complex one, but like a breakthrough product. You usually need around 15 years to bring one to the market. Yeah, you need to develop the first principles, then the concept of the product, assemble the core team while you are doing it, make experiments in rodents, in big mammals, and primates, pass all ethical barriers, then transition this to humans, pass clinicals one, do the scaling of your manufacturing, because you cannot just transition easily, like you need to scale your manufacturing, then you can pass clinicals 2, clinical 3, then you will achieve some kind of product market fit with some expensive thing, and then other competitors will reproduce it, and then it will become cheap, available, and safe. And there is financing that's required for all of these steps, because only here the company is starting to make profit, like the commercial company. So the problem is with the cyber body and with a lot of like span extension technologies that we are talking about, that they require more than one product that we need right now. So we can talk about 2 precursor level technologies. So precursor 2 technologies that need to be assembled, precursor 1 technologies that probably depend on precursor 2, and only then you can produce the North Star, why you actually were doing it, the final good. So if we are speaking that precursor 1 can be produced in 15 to 45 years, and precursor 2 are starting, for example, from 30 years to like 70 years, then you reach a North Star in 90 years, which is a problem. And this happens if you are doing this in a very unoptimized way. You start not in the one, not simultaneously. You don't start the next product immediately after you have finished or brought to market the previous one, and etc. So that's classic market development of the technology, like limited by the market rules. So, but maybe we can optimize it a bit if we at least develop those things in parallel and start them simultaneously. So in this case, 15 years for precursor 1, if we start them all as simultaneous as possible, 30 years for precursor 1, or for second precursor, and then you have the North Star. And it's a bit better, but still quite bad, because a lot of people will die during those 45 years. So what we actually can do is we can highly optimize it. So we can throw away all the market delivery from the critical path. So the market delivery is a separate platform. So like it's ink, and DAO is designed to reach North Star as fast as possible. So we found the first principles here. Then we, at the same time, like we start the development in preclinical level, and all the developments in preclinical level is going. Then as soon as the preclinical level for precursors finish, the next precursors preclinical level starts. And at the same time, scaling is being done already for preparing further. And everything like market-driven, everything with human trials is going to the separate track. So here we only have preclinical level studies everywhere. So if we are smart enough to work in this way and coordinate on the industry level, on the preclinical level, then we can develop the science faster, way faster. But I'm not sure that humanity is familiar with this kind of coordinations, and it's hopefully that DAOs are the perfect vehicle for this. So either DAOs or Manhattan projects. I don't know other options here. In this case, we can deliver it to 15 to 20 years, probably.
I wonder if you guys could significantly cut down the amount of time spent in preclinical and clinical trials by using some of the, perhaps having such trials in Prospera, where Vitalia is located. It's a small island off the coast of Honduras, that is really like a brilliant economic free zone that really takes the advantages of the free market and kind of hyper accentuates them there. But I think they're specifically like very, I don't want to say lax on regulation, but they have better regulation that might allow you to not deal with some of the huge amount of time you have to waste, or I would say waste, if people are dying.
Tomer, you are in Vitalia right now, right?
Yeah, I'm actually there right now. Here's the wristband.
Okay.
Yeah, so good call. I think we are very far from any clinical application at the moment. So we'll consider that when it's maybe in 5 years. And for animal studies, I think we need a lot of infrastructure. So I'm not sure they have this here. But definitely it's something that we've been looking into. Yeah, more lax regulation that's more favorable of what we're trying to do. Yeah.
Yes, thank you for that answer. Go ahead.
Yeah, hard thing here is that, as I said, like all the clinicals must be pushed to separate tracks. Like they must go in a different way from preclinicals. In this case, we can achieve the velocity of technology inventions faster. And it's kind of like you are talking to an investor or a sponsor and you say, like, if you give me 500K, I will probably do this. But if you give me 5 million, I can probably do this 10 times faster. So you choose, like, it's your life. You have to make decision. What do you want more? Do you need your existence, or do you need profit? Like, or do you need some kind of balance? Let's decide. So I think it's a function of the fundraising. So if we can do fundraising really well, then we can not bother with bringing things to market. But it's very risky because in this case, there is a high dependency on the investors. So that's one more thing, quite like combination of the strategies of funding strategies looks like a plausible way to go. And one more thing here that is super interesting is that only commercial company will probably be sustainable enough to support your cyborgization. So it must have like imagine if you are dependent on a company that's below the break even. Well, like and it's funded by like previous private rounds and public rounds. Yeah, it's a good one, but like is it that reliable? To like probably there must be a requirement for like even in future for cyborgization companies to be self-funded or something like this, or have an endowments like the universities are having now, because like life of the people will depend on this.
Yes, thank you for that reply. And since longevity escape velocity was discussed, Dr. Jose Cordero has a question on that subject. So please proceed, Jose.
Yes, thank you so much. And also a fantastic session. And I like to see that Tomer is in Infinita City. Last year I was there when it was called Vitalia. So maybe he can comment the move from Vitalia to Infinita City. But talking about longevity escape velocity, this past Monday, I was with Ray Kurzweil at the biggest technology event in Europe, which is called Mobile World Congress. It is like the consumer electronics show in Las Vegas, but the Mobile World Congress is in Barcelona, and Ray participated virtually, and he changed his date for longevity escape velocity. He has been saying, even until last year when his book came out, The Singularity is Nearer, he wrote between 2029 and 2030, we would reach longevity escape velocity. But now, just this Monday, he said 2032. So he has delayed it 2 years, which is not too bad. But so what do you guys think about longevity escape velocity? If you have any time frames in your mind. And Tomer, tell us about Infinita City as well. Yeah,
I think Tomer, you should start.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, the reason they switched from Vitalia to Infinita is like a bit political, so I don't want to go into that. But yeah, I'm here. It's similar to I think what you've seen last year. We're actually just having like a pitch contest with the Drapers. You know them, Tim and Adam Draper. And yeah, there's a lot of startups here working on different ventures in biotech and in AI and Web3, and it's been very interesting. Yeah, with regards to longevity, escape velocity, I don't know. I mean, this is why we're hedging, right? So we need this to work on as many paths as possible. I don't think I'm not as optimistic as Kurzweil, and actually, I'm not sure about this concept, longevity, escape velocity. That if you play it back, it means that we already should have a longevity, escape velocity now, right? I mean, what does it mean by achieving it in 8 years? It means that only someone who was born in 8 years would benefit. Like, I don't think this concept is well defined, but I think that the faster we move on several avenues, the more chances we have. And it's just like at this point, I mean, for me, it's just there's too many unknowns to make any viable prediction. But I mean, he's made a living of it, so kudos to him. Yeah.
If I can add, I think that if we are speaking about longevity, escape velocity, we have to separate the strategies from each other. Like, I mean, like I prefer to call it like immortality tech strategies, like because yeah, as Tomer mentioned, like longevity, escape velocity is hard to define. We probably should be already on track. So
yeah. Also, I should say, if he says that every year we gain 1 year, like we gain more than 1 year every year, so I don't think it's going to be this linear, right? It's not like we're gaining 1 year every year. We're going to have some big gains at some point and some years of stagnation. So yeah, I don't know. I just don't like this concept.
Yeah. So first of all, it may happen that we are actually dropping in our lifespan extension, in our lifespan expectations. So number one would be that right now, if you talk with the surgeons in hospitals, and you will ask them about infections and about how we are fighting infections and bacteria, like with antibiotics and antibodies, like if you will ask them about it, they will tell you that right now they are using the strongest versions of antibiotics for the easiest diseases, because like they learn to, like they are adopting against them, and so we are losing the immune, like this development, the breakthrough of 20th century, we are losing in this right now. And we need new breakthroughs, for example, even to fight with those infections that like, and we already expected those years, like you didn't expect that you will die after the operation because your immunity is lower and you are lying, and some infection came into your lungs and then into your brains, and the antibiotics don't help because it's immune resistant to your antibiotics. So we are losing sometimes. And so we need a better progress here. What can you do here? Like you can have a nanorobot that, I don't know, somehow breaks those cells inside your blood or whatever, but that is not invented yet. We have only hypothetical approaches that are not delivered to the market. So like that's problem one, like let's be aware of them. So problem two, to actually predict the longevity escape velocity, like, or at least the appearance of the immortality tech therapies, we need to understand how can they appear in two ways, either in the way of process management, how big is the chance that somewhere in FDA pipeline or in some university there is a drug developed that has a breakthrough, if we are talking about gerontology approaches or something like this, like how can the whole cycle be optimized in the way that we are achieving it faster because the cycle is highly not lean. Like Toyota will probably cry if they will be asked about, like the inventors of the lean, they will cry if they will be asked about optimizing the drug delivery to the market and the scientific part. But the second thing here, that if we are talking about replacement strategies, here we are not. We already are not in the process management. We are in project management, which brings us to the point: what is the critical path to achieve the specific technology, like a cyber body, or like brain in a vat, or a full body replacement, which are not the perfect therapies, because like there are alternative therapies that may be applied already. So it's not a killer for all the problems. If you have a liver disease or a kidney disease, it's probably easier to replace your liver or a kidney. Like there are like only some diseases that can be replaced by cyber bodies. But let's imagine we are talking about still about full body replacement or cyber body replacement. So cyber body replacement, best case scenario is 15 years, and worst case for first clinical, and not even clinical, first application in humans. And worst case scenario is 90 years probably. And if we are talking about, for example, biological replacement, full body replacement, which I can consider first like futura medicine therapy that can come. Well, I know that all the surgery teams in the world that are working on this, and I've talked with them at least once, with all of them. So the closest one, from my perspective, are 7 years from starting to operate in humans. And it will be extremely expensive therapy with 40 surgeons trying to save your life, to transplant to a donor body, and not a non-sentient one, because it won't be grown. So probably in 10 years, this kind of futuristic therapy will exist. About other ways, we are trying, I have personal interest in futurology, and I'm trying to map the critical paths to all of them, but all of those paths are highly speculative, and they may not work, or even those that we are speaking here may not work. So the best thing that we can do actually to achieve it is try to triple the price, make 100x of deep tech entrepreneurs who are trying to save our lives right now. And which means they must be deep tech, they must be entrepreneurs, and they must be transhumanists at the same time. So they must put life extension as their main principle in the world. If you have 100x of them, then we will probably achieve some kind of velocity.
Yes, and I think to bring about a significant increase in the number of transhumanist entrepreneurs, we need to get more people to become transhumanists. We need to grow the movement, because currently the size of the explicit transhumanist movement is still relatively quite small. I estimate the number of self-identified transhumanists in the world right now to be somewhere in the low tens of thousands. That's my best hypothesis as to how many there are, and 4,600 of them are in the US Transhumanist Party approximately. But I also wanted to bring up some of the comments that our viewers have made on longevity escape velocity. Daniel Tweed writes, LEV will probably begin to manifest more like 2 years forward, 1 year back. And that's in recognition of events like the COVID pandemic, which temporarily reduced average life expectancy in the world, though it has recovered and slightly exceeded the pre-COVID life expectancy in most countries. In the United States, we have a particular problem with life expectancy of middle-aged white American males who have tended to die at increasing rates from so-called deaths of despair, alcoholism, drug use, suicide. And I think that demographic is most likely the demographic that needs the most help to not die, but it's a social and cultural crisis that they're facing right now. Daniel also jokes, ask your doctor about LEV. You may have LEV and not know it, in reference to there may be a time when we are actually going to gain in life expectancy to a greater extent than the passage of time, but we might not notice it immediately. We might not even know all of the technologies that could be at our disposal when we are in a condition to need them. And Elaine Walker, along the same lines, writes, we won't know till we know. But once people start living past 125 or 130, I think we can say we've reached longevity escape velocity. At least the telomere shortening problem would need to be overcome to make that happen. And she also writes, one analogy is that it might be like the Turing test. Now that we have AI, especially the large language models that exist today, we're not even bothering with the Turing test because a lot of these models could easily pass the Turing test, but we're thinking of them differently now. And perhaps once we live to 200, we will stop saying escape velocity. I do think it's important to surpass this current maximum lifespan barrier for somebody to overcome Jean Calment's record of 122 years. And then I think people will really start noticing, and research funding will really start to flow into anti-aging approaches, whether that would be replacement or the more traditional rejuvenation approaches. Speaking of LEV timeframes, Aubrey de Grey has stated for a long time that there's a 50% probability, approximately in his view, of LEV being reached sometime in the late 2030s. And these days he would say about 11 to 15 years from now. David Wood, a couple of years ago, gave a presentation where he stated he estimates LEV at around 2041. So that's a little bit later than Aubrey's probabilistic timeframe. But Aubrey has also said he thinks there's a 10% probability that LEV might not be achieved for another 100 years, but still a 50% probability of achieving it within our lifetime sometime in the late 2030s is very much a fighting chance. And I definitely am hopeful that he is correct. Zach mentions that Aubrey and Brian Johnson just had an argument about that on X, and we will bring up the post very shortly, but I think it's a very interesting conversation, and hopefully replacement approaches will be part of that general approach toward LEV. So thank you for that conversation. I also wanted to give Charlie Cam the opportunity to pose a question. Let's see, and while Charlie is getting ready, I will.
There it is.
Yes.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Great. First, I want to thank you guys for coming on today. This is fascinating stuff. And Tomer, thank your grandmother for volunteering. This idea of getting into cyborg is ultimately what we need for humanity to survive. There's no way we're going to stay in existence in these fragile human bodies. They're susceptible to too many diseases, murder, war, accidents. I mean, it will necessarily be necessary to get into the cyborg. So you guys are definitely on the right track. As far as immediate survival, I think organ replacement is the easiest thing that's available. I remember in 1996 when Dr. Sheep was first cloned, and I said, well, there you go. We have a solution eventually. And that was about 30 years ago. But we are on a law of accelerating returns where there's an exponential growth of technologies. I do think everything we've been talking about will probably be happening within the next 20 years. That company, or when that happened with Dolly the sheep, that company eventually became Revivicor, which is owned by Martine Rothblatt, and she's been developing the organs that you probably heard about and talked about, where they were developing those artificial hearts that were used a couple of years ago in emergency replacements, and they were quite successful. And she's those were grown in pig farms. That's what Revivicor was. Now she's moved from that to developing organs on through 3D growth. and those are quite successful. That'll all be available in the next couple of years. So I see that is something that should be able to sustain us for a while. And I do think, that's something that it'll be a lot easier to develop than the cyborg, minimum scale cyborgs that you're talking about, which is still fascinating, and it's the direction to go in. I had a question though. What are you guys thinking about with regard to anything focused on dementia? Because saving the brain is obviously what you want to do, but we still have an issue with getting that fixed. So any thoughts or talk about that?
I am. Tomer, do you want?
With regards to the brain, obviously by just moving, like installing the head on a machine, we don't solve brain aging, which is intrinsic to the brain. So it's actually, it's uncharted territory. We've never kept a head separately from the body long term, so we don't know. Maybe the brain can survive for longer. And certainly there's some experiments showing that if you infuse young blood into an old body, you get some rejuvenation benefits in the brain. But even optimistically, the brain will survive somewhat longer, maybe some years or decades on this machine. And we're going to have to solve that too. And this is even more complex than replacing the body. So one thing that's to our benefit is that actually it's been shown that if you have a slow-growing tumor, then it's almost imperceptible because the stored capacity in that region that's developing the tumor, it just moves, it migrates to another region of the brain. So we can leverage that and to gradually replace the brain. So there's a program trying to do that with just replacing parts of the brain with biological tissue. So they would grow like these brain parts in the lab, these tissue grafts, and then they would silence parts of the brain slowly so that the capacity would move to the adjacent parts and you won't feel anything. And then they can remove these silenced parts, which are like in an old brain, and replace them with new parts. But this is like super complex and will require like multiple sequential brain surgeries. So obviously it's still a distant prospect, but conceptually it's possible. But what we've been thinking about is whether you can make a synthetic replacement for the brain. So instead of replacing these parts, these old parts that you've silenced with biological tissue, you can do that with some kind of synthetic analog neuromorphic chip. So some people have been developing that. I think Andrei spoke about it briefly. So we need like actual physical hardware that is can fully recapitulate the dynamics of neurons. And if we're able to do that, we might be able to seamlessly integrate such synthetic parts into a biological brain and just gradually, just let the capacity and all the processing move onto this piece of hardware that's more resilient. And that's how we hope that long term we can solve brain aging. But that's many decades away, so we're focused on just replacing everything from the neck down, and that can buy us some more time. But as you mentioned, just plain organ transplants from young donors or from clones can also buy us some years of life, I believe, and it's just another perfectly reasonable strategy. So I can't say which is better.
I can add some things here. So when we are speaking about brain replacement, we still having problems with, even if this therapy by Jean Hébert will hopefully succeed, or if someone else will do it, we are still having problems with deep areas of the brain. So yeah, you can replace parts of the cortex, but what if you have to go deeper? And here we have a couple of alternative strategies. So there are ways how we can potentially, if you are in a cyber body, like if your brains are perfused, then you have artificial skull. Like if your brain like planted somewhere. Even with current setups in brain perfusion that are done in different universities, they have to build some kind of artificial skull to keep the brain integrated and consistent. So, and this kind of artificial skulls that cyborgs will have, they'll that cyborgs already have it. There will be probably easier to access the deeper parts of the brain to apply replacement strategies there. So a second problem, like if we're talking about the consciousness parts and actually like having some more and more from different biologists, we hear that they are bearish on the biology and bullish on the migration to synthetic platforms, of migration of consciousness to synthetic platforms. And so we can speak about some kind of alternative strategies here, but probably the easiest achievable strategy in uploading, and that's our ultimate mission to finally find a way how we can migrate to synthetic platform. So the easiest would be 300 millions of robots that live inside your blood vessels, inside your brain, and they are connected to your brain. So you drink a glass of those robots, they reach your brain, or like you put them inside your blood vein, on the vein, and they are connecting you to some kind of digital hemisphere. So the problem number one is it's hard to produce them. They will probably be managed by ultrasound, and this is a technical problem itself. Like there are around 5 technical issues in producing them. They are not scientific risks, they are engineering risks, but still they are hard. Second problem here, that they need to cover your brain highly, and all the parts of the brain must be synced with the relative parts of the virtual hemisphere, and they must function in the way where in current science I can say there is a global workspace theory, that things appear in your global workspace. So your virtual brain must work in as good that it formulates the global workspace with your biological brain, and your attention swaps between your cloud brain and between your biological brain somehow and jumps between them, and the whole system is working concurrently. And even those things that I explain now, it's crazy science fiction, but and even in this case, we don't know if a synthetic carrier can support consciousness by itself. Maybe it's a quantum effect, like Panferov said. So we don't know. So if we are very, 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 very lucky, in 10 magnitude lucky, then potentially consciousness is functional, and in this case, we can produce something like digital that we can sync it with. And if it's subneuron level or quantum level, with the synthetic replacement strategy, we will have to imitate a neuron dynamics, which is way harder than a digital hemisphere, because neurons can have their axons for centimeters grown. And I can't imagine a neuromorphic chip, and there are neuromorphic chips right now that are designed in the way imitating the neural networks. It's hard to imagine the neuromorphic chip compatible with this level of the neuron dynamics that we want to speak about and that we want to achieve. And in the worst case scenario, if it's quantum, then we need to reproduce the side skeleton or something else that but inside another robot or inside an artificial neuron cell. So those things so hard to achieve that we have to buy years. So we probably have to do several things at the same time, trying to transplant, trying to get to us artificial way of supporting our heads, trying to perfuse them and grab everyone that we can and freeze them as long as we can, and until we really can reproduce somehow the whole complexity of the neurodynamics, either in silica or in some other method. But it's so hard even to speak about those things.
Yeah, I would just chime in and just stress that, I think the topic of mind migration is very much in the realm of speculation at this point, and there's a lot of basic science that needs to be undertaken for us to even know what is possible. Whereas our main focus, which is just maintaining the head in homeostasis separately from the body, I think that's mostly an engineering problem, and we we have it figured out. I think we know all the steps we need to take to get there. But nonetheless, in Sciborg, we do want to also advance the mission of mind migration, because this is the ultimate goal. So we are looking for projects, even very basic science projects that are aligned with this idea, and trying to answer critical questions, like Andrei said, about the nature of consciousness, and making neuromorphic chips, which may also have other applications. So we're trying to balance these two avenues.
Yes, thank you very much for that answer. And it has inspired a bit of a discussion in our live chat about what would suffice to preserve consciousness, whether moving to a digital substrate is a possible means of preserving it, or whether it would fundamentally transform consciousness in some way. And I've stated my position before. My thought is that any sort of digital preservation of consciousness would need to involve a very gradual replacement process with integration over time of the artificial components of the brain with the biological components. And of course, we have also spoken with our friend Dr. Jean Hébert. We had a virtual enlightenment salon with him on April 11th, 2021, where he extensively delved into his proposal for gradual replacement of the brain with biological tissues. And many of us know that Dr. Jean Hébert has become a program manager with ARPA-H. So he now has significant amounts of money at his disposal to actually get that proposal funded and implemented. So let us wish him the best in that regard. And for those who would like to know more of my thoughts on what does and does not preserve the self, please take a look at this article entitled "How Can I Live Forever?" from 2010. And now, in the last 6.5 minutes of our salon, I would like to give Art Ramon the opportunity to ask a question, and then we will see if our guests have concluding remarks to offer. So Art Ramon, please go ahead.
Yeah, as far as, synthetic replacements, Martian colonization, people say that, Elon Musk wants to build a colony out there, but others say that everyone's going to die. And humans are quite fragile from radiation. I remember reading somewhere that even the dirt on Mars is quite toxic. Any ideas of getting interest funding from Elon Musk, who wants to do a Martian colony?
We had quite fun picture in our Twitter where we claim that Mars is for cyborgs, because we all know, like Elon, we all know that humans are not made for Mars. But definitely it looks easier, to conquer, to take over some planet if you don't have to terraform it. If you have a metal jaw and metal lung and you don't even need air to breathe, Like it should be way easier. I think actually initial concept of the cyborgs was born from the paper Cyborgs in Space in early 20th century. And that was describing how we can adopt the human species with cyborgization to take in space over. So it's quite natural, like cyborgs will be space nation, ultimately, I think so.
Yes, indeed. And I could think of cyborg avatars essentially being used to explore, colonize other worlds. So we could have human operators, even in the brain in a vat scenario, but it doesn't have to be that. It could be one of us connected to a robotic avatar that explores Mars and lives and works on the Mars colony, but we could essentially take on its sensations and experiences and fully immersive virtual reality. It still doesn't solve the problem of what happens if an asteroid hits Earth or we have a nuclear war or other kind of existential calamity. How do we preserve the biological human species? So hopefully there will be some organic humans on Mars, but I think we would need to terraform it first, make it a lot more hospitable and extend our lifespans, because even the journey will take a fair amount of time, perhaps a few months going each way, and getting settled on a new planet is going to take a few years, to say the least. So thank you for that answer. And thank you very much to Alan Crowley for your great contribution and your good words about this great virtual enlightenment salon. In the last 3 minutes, I would invite Andrei and Tomer to offer closing remarks regarding the work of Sciborg DAO, anything else you would like our viewers to know, and what can we expect from the future of your organization?
I think we covered pretty a lot during the salon, and it was extremely actually interesting to talk with you, and all the questions were super conscious, and yeah, it's a pleasant place to give speech at. Like you have a very special atmosphere here, and it's a pleasure to talk with you. About our future, so we are waiting for the right market moment to actually, like right now we're having a private round in Sciborg DAO and in Sciborg Inc. So those who want to support our communities, we will be happy to invite them. So you can text to us or leave a message on the website or sign to our Twitter and text us there. We are also open on Discord and in Telegram, basically everywhere. And like we need all kinds of people to join. Like if you like, we need artists. We need we are open for collaborations. We need scientists. We need entrepreneurs, and of course we need investors and sponsors. Like DAO is only for non-profit scenario for sponsors, and we will have also Inc. for those who want to work closer with commercializable technologies faster and to build a platform together. Thank you very much. Tomer, do you have anything to add? Yeah.
You pretty much covered it. Yeah, if anyone has anything, if he wants to participate in the discussion, so do onboard our Discord server. And yeah, we're hoping to launch a governance token very soon so that people can vote on proposals that align with the mission. And I'm just looking for the Discord links to send it.
Thank you.
Yes, and we will post the Discord link when it's available. I would like to thank Andrei and Tomer for joining us today. This is truly a fascinating conversation. Previously with Hydra DAO, we explored the possibility of biological replacement of organs as well as whole body replacement. Now we have had an extensive conversation about a cybernetic replacement strategy, and these are all fascinating approaches toward overcoming death, prolonging our lifespans. We don't know yet which approach will arrive more quickly, which approach will prevail or gain popularity. But it is useful to be having these conversations now and exploring all of these pathways now so that we can all live long and prosper.